Capitol Street. That was just after Kenilworth Avenue with delays there, reportedly back to about Benning Road. Northbound on 270, fuel spill in the roadway. This is northbound up near Falls Road. So just as you get into the Rockville area, only one lane blocked off here, but I would expect some delays forming, if nothing else, because of the distraction. Southbound on 270, leaving Hyattstown, still a problem. Volume in place, and an old accident lingers on right near 109. Let's go ahead and do the camera check. Take you onto the Beltway. Here we are on 495. This is in the College Park area. The pace here has improved. It's been slow a good part of the morning because of some sunshine delays for the folks on the inner loop on the right-hand side, but it looks like their pace has improved considerably in the last several minutes. Here's the scene up the pike a little bit. If you are going to travel through Silver Spring near New Hampshire Avenue, still slow through the work zone until you get to Georgia Avenue. The American Legion Bridge looks great in or out of Bethesda. And here's the scene on southbound 270, still slow from Hyattstown down to Germantown and slow on and off as you approach Gaithersburg. In Northern Virginia, northbound 95 through the lane shift in Springfield. It's still going to be heavy for you as you make your way up towards the Landmark area. This is the scene on 395 near Duke Street. And again, it's on and off all the way up to this point, Boundary Channel Drive. More news straight ahead.
Sound, Don, or what?
Yes, it was a how to describe it? It was a high-pitched, but it had a whooshing sound, not like a prop plane.
Huh. And you didn't see anything actually in the air?
No, I wasn't looking out, but we looked out immediately. You can see quite a lot of damage. If it was an airplane, it had to be huge because it hit way up in the World Trade Center. I would say it's probably a good 5/6 of the way up to the top. There's a considerable amount of flame. There's damage on two sides that I can see. On the very north-facing side, there's where looks like is the largest amount of damage. There's a gigantic hole that encompasses a number of floors. I would say maybe 10 to 15 floors. And then on the left side, which would be the east side, there's considerable damage as well, and lots of flames and smoke coming out of it.
You know, I don't know that people outside New York realize it, but these two buildings are essentially cities in and of themselves. I mean, there's 30 to 40,000 people, if I remember the number, and I'm doing this from memory.
Yes.
Number of people who actually work in these buildings, and this obviously occurred at the time that people were coming to work.
Don, are you saying that this sound was striking enough that you heard it?
Absolutely.
You saw it?
I noticed it before the explosion. I noticed a sound like something was very low and shrieking across the sky. And then I heard the explosion.
And which of the two towers is this? Because again, we're just seeing an angle that's a little deceptive.
This is the West Tower.
Mm-hmm. Now we're hearing somewhat faintly in the background, Don, as you talk to us.
Andy put a little battery in me. I'm told that it may be a twin-engine plane that simply smashed. It looks like it went head-on, smack into the World Trade Center building. One could only...
Right now we're getting information, Al, that it was a small commuter plane, and of course we'll let people know as soon as we have more information as to what actually caused this, and of course on everybody's mind who might have been hurt as a result of this terrible, terrible incident. We're going to be talking to more eyewitnesses coming up in just a few minutes.
We're back at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on this Tuesday morning, and we're back with dramatic pictures of an accident that has happened just a short time ago. You're looking at the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, where just a few minutes ago we're told that a plane, some reports are that it was a small commuter plane, crashed into the upper floors of one of the twin towers. You can see fire and flames or smoke billowing from that tower. There is a gaping hole on the north side of the building. That's the side you're seeing to the left-hand side of your screen right now, and other damage to the west side of that building, which is to the right side of your screen. This, of course, happened just before the morning commute, before people were heading into their offices, and while I'm sure some people were already at work, immediately there's speculation or cause for concern. This is the World Trade Center that was the center of a terrorist bombing some years ago, so the questions have to be asked, was this purely an accident, or could this have been an intentional act? But either way, extensive damage has been done to this building.
It also looks like there's smoke coming out of the east side of the building. That shot we just saw looks like white smoke billowing out the side of the east side of the building.
Obviously, horrified commuters were absolutely devastated when they heard this explosion. We talked with somebody a moment ago about that, Jennifer Oberstein, and also another eyewitness, Elliot Walker, who is actually a producer here on the Today Show. Elliot, can you hear me?
Yes, hi Katie.
Hi, Elliot. Tell me where you are and what you saw.
Well, I'm filled with hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper that are just sort of floating like confetti. The area is swarmed with emergency vehicles and sirens. Obviously, we're very sensitive to this kind of thing in this neighborhood.
Elliot, have you, of course, because of the incident that occurred in the early 1990s, have you seen any evidence, Elliot, of people being taken out of the building? You say that emergency vehicles are there, understandably so, but of course the major concern is human loss. I mean, do you know if there were many people in the building?
Oh, another one just hit. Something else just hit. A very large plane just flew directly over my building, and there's been another collision. Can you see it? I can see it on the shot.
Oh my!
Something else has
you know what? We just saw a plane circling the building. We just saw a plane circling the building a second ago on the shot right before that.
I think there may have been another impact. Can you tell? I just heard another very loud bang, and a very large plane that might have been a DC-9 or a 747 just flew past my window, and I think it may have hit the Trade Center again.
To be honest, Elliot, I didn't get the impression that it was that big a plane.
It looks big from here.
I did see a plane go by a second ago, though, and it has now impacted the building. I'm trying to see if it's the different tower.
I think it may have been. I believe the first one was World Trade Center 1, and it looks, from what I'm seeing on the television, like it may have been the second building that was hit.
This is a piece of tape, and we may actually see another plane enter the picture here in a second.
I wonder if there are air traffic control problems.
Let's go back to Jennifer Oberstein, who was talking to a second ago. Jennifer, did you see this happen?
Hello?
Did you just see this happen, Jennifer?
Matt, I've never seen any. It looks like a movie. I saw a large plane, like a jet, go immediately headed directly into the World Trade Center. It just flew into it, into the other tower, coming from south to north. I watched the plane fly into the World Trade Center. It was a jet. It was a very large plane. It was going fast. It went past the Ritz-Carlton Hotel that's being built in Battery Park. It flew right past it, almost hit it, and then went in.
This is so shocking, of course, to everybody watching.
I've never seen anything like it. It literally flew itself into World Trade Center.
Obviously now we move from what appears to have... There it is right there.
Again, I'm looking from south to north, and it went into the one on the right.
That appeared to be at least a 727. We saw it a second ago. Here comes the videotape that we just showed you. You will see what appears to be a large plane. It could be a 727 right there, maybe even bigger, flying right into the side of the World Trade Center.
It was at least a 727. It was a jet. I couldn't believe my eyes watching it right above me.
And now you have to move from talk about a possible accident to talk about something deliberate that has happened here. We're going to immediately check with air traffic control in the area to find out if they had contact with either of these planes before the accident, but what we've just seen is about the most shocking videotape I've ever seen.
What are the odds of two separate planes hitting both towers?
Elliot, are you still there?
Hello?
Elliot?
Yes, I'm still here, Katie.
So, Elliot, what can you see right now from your perspective?
I don't face in that direction. I can't see anything personally.
Impossible to understand why this is happening and to figure out what in the world is going on.
I think we have to be grateful that the first plane hit before 9 a.m., but it's now after 9 a.m., and I just wonder how many people were in those offices.
Well, hopefully that they were evacuated following the first incident, and we can only hope that there was a very short period of time from when we first learned about this was probably about 8:50 Eastern Time. This second incident occurred about 9:05. And so obviously that would be a short amount of time to get people out of the building. Ali Eberhard is another witness.
The towers of the World Trade Center, but I don't believe it's one of the two top ones.
No, it's not. It's about the 30th floor. It is not up there. And by the way, for those who are wondering about the structural stuff, both towers appear to be structurally sound. They're not...
It with a wing, and if it did, of course, then there's the frightening prospect that the plane would have crashed right on the streets of very busy streets of New York.
It seems, this is a small hope that the fire may have gone out from the first site. I don't know if we can get the camera in close or not. It doesn't mean that the smoke isn't still terrifying and deadly.
Diane, I can see from here.
World Trade Center building in New York City in Midtown Manhattan. Let's show you the pictures again, the scene from New York City. The second explosion came after an aircraft crashed into the upper floors of one of the World Trade Center tower buildings this morning. That happened just after 9 o'clock. The first incident happening about 8:45. Black smoke can be seen, of course, billowing out of the top of the building there. Again, we're not sure about fatalities, injuries, or evacuation orders surrounding that mecca of work in New York City this morning. We're watching and waiting for the latest information to come from authorities in New York City.
It's a terrible scene right now.
Yes, the towers look terrible.
Wow. Wow. Miss Renault, are you still on with me? Therese Renault?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you tell us if the scene has changed from your vantage point?
I would say from my vantage point right now, it's looks like there are very few flames coming out of the first tower, still a lot of smoke. The second tower, we can still see flames coming out of the window, the north window, and a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke. The tops of the building are covered in smoke.
And from your vantage point, you can't see anything of what's happening on the ground?
No, I cannot.
In New York, you are looking at this picture. It is the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, both of them being damaged by impacts from planes. We saw one happen at about maybe 9 minutes before the top of the hour, and just moments ago, so maybe 18 minutes after the first impact, the second tower was impacted by another, what appeared to be another passenger plane. In fact, we've got some tape replay of that. Do we have the tape available right now? Here's the plate. Here is the tape. You see the plane coming in from what looks like the east side, and it blows into the building with the flames and the smoke billowing out the other side of the tower. It's hard for me to tell exactly which is the north side and which is the south side, but it appears it's coming out of the north side there. Incredible pictures. These happened just moments ago. And I believe we have someone with us on the line, Ira Firmer. We have Ira Firmer, the former NTSB spokesman, and you're watching these pictures as well with us, are you not?
Yeah, I'm with you on CNN.
What can you make of what we have seen, and particularly with this replay we just saw moments ago?
That's absolutely inexplicable. There shouldn't be any aircraft in that area, much less something heading what looked like deliberately.
Navigational equipment failure or some sort of a navigational quirk by beacons or whatever?
No, you've got incredibly good visibility at this point, and no pilot is going to be relying on navigational equipment in such a circumstance that would cause them to crash into the World Trade Center.
How far out of the way from an approach to either LaGuardia or Kennedy would a plane have to be to hit the World Trade Center?
There are approaches that come up along the Hudson.
Of course, it was in 1993 that we had that bombing underneath when a group of terrorists apparently were trying to topple one tower into the other and set off a big truck bomb in a parking garage beneath one of the towers and caused dozens of injuries. And,
thousands of others were injured, 6 people killed.
Yes, 6 people were killed in that. And this actually is a familiar story to New Yorkers after a B-25 plane actually hit the Empire State Building, but that happened in dense fog, and we're looking at a bright, sunny day today. NOC is investigating reports of a plane hijacking before the crashes. This could conceivably explain how such a large commercial jet could end up flying into one of the towers. One of the things about flying around in New York is that it is a very busy air traffic area, and the possibility of so large a jet being able to take off from anywhere in the area and crash into one of those planes is looking into reports of a jet being hijacked in the New York City area. It may well be that we know where that jet or 2 jets went.
Okay, we'll have more on this breaking story as soon as we come back from this break. Stay with Headline News. Charlie.
There.
Hello?
And the
by these fire trucks. So this is kind of a disaster that's still unfolding. Steer clear of the place.
Certainly, yes, and I mean, if you do want to see this, you don't have to get all that close.
Fuego que verán en pocos segundos. Según testigos, la primera explosión fue causada por un bimotor comercial que chocó cerca del piso 80 de la edificación y dejó una enorme grieta en la fachada del edificio. La segunda aparentemente fue causada por un jet de gran tamaño que volaba a baja altura. Hasta el momento no hay reportes sobre posibles víctimas en este edificio donde trabajan más de 40,000 personas y sabemos que a esta hora de la mañana, cuando ha ocurrido que parece ser un acto terrorista, cientos de personas estaban trabajando porque comienza la mañana en la ciudad de Nueva York. Sabemos que es un día muy ocupado, donde hoy se realizan elecciones primarias. No sabemos el monto de los daños, pero podemos ver a simple vista en estas imágenes que han llegado en directo desde la Gran Manzana después de este que sí parece un acto terrorista, cuando dos aviones han prácticamente atravesado el edificio, las dos torres gemelas. Sabemos que podrían dejar un sinnúmero de muertos. Sabemos que las autoridades están investigando en este preciso instante porque estos actos que parecen actos terroristas ocurrieron prácticamente al comienzo de la mañana en la ciudad de Nueva York, una ciudad que apenas despertaba. El FBI investiga en este momento una versión de un secuestro del avión que ocurrió aparentemente antes de estas dos explosiones que estamos viendo ahí, imágenes en directo desde Nueva York, en el centro del comercio mundial de Nueva York, o sea, el World Trade Center.
Well, I'm going to continue taking it. I want to lose that 40 more pounds. I want to feel real good about myself. Like I said, I know I'll never be a supermodel. I just want to feel good about me. Today I went to see my cousin.
There is video that we're going to show you shortly of the second impact on Tower 2, the tower further back. That one coming lower. We're going to see that now in just a second. And here you're going to be able to see the size of the plane. Let's take a look at it, and you see it slowed there. And that's the second impact lower, we believe, perhaps in the 50th, 60th floors. A large plane in Lark, also another development, perhaps related to...
Intelligence officials, Katie, there appeared, at least to their knowledge, to be no specific threat involving hijacking airliners or any attacks on buildings in the New York area. U.S. intelligence officials report this morning that there are, they constantly are hearing about threats, possible terrorist threats against American targets worldwide. But as far as they know this morning, they had no early indications that anything of this nature could have occurred. Pentagon officials are already calling this a terrorist attack. They say that they have not yet ordered the scrambling of any military jets. If National Guard were to be scrambled in that area, that would be at the order of the governor. Now, of course, the president does have the authority to scramble American military forces in defense, but there's a problem here. What now do you defend against exactly? If you put warplanes in the air, there's always a danger that they could misidentify a pilot's intention.
Susan?
Although I believe, according to officials here,
I just
that
wanted
all
to tell you
flights
guys,
in
if you
that
want to
area
continue,
are now off limits and restricted. But so far, the U.S. military and Pentagon officials are scrambling to get as much information as they possibly can to determine what course of action, if any, the U.S. military would take.
But Mick, they are describing this as a terrorist attack right now.
There are some officials here in the Pentagon who are calling this an obvious terrorist attack based on very preliminary information. The information that intelligence officials are getting in terms of a possible hijacked plane, and of course the very horrifying video of the plane veering into the tower itself is a clear indication to everyone here that this is not an accident.
All right, Jim Miklaszewski, thanks. And of course, the coordination that took place to have two planes hit the towers within 18 minutes of one another. Let's go back to the White House now. Bob Kerr is still standing by there. Bob, what can you tell us?
Well, Matt, it was interesting to listen to Jim Miklaszewski there from the Pentagon.
Is in the building. We do know...
We're listening in the background.
At this time, all elevators are out in both towers, according to the rescue workers on the scene. They put out an urgent call for Scott air packs because they're climbing smoke-filled stairwells. They've got to go very high up to get to the target locations. and they're talking
principal government buildings in the city.
Aircraft?
Yes.
The one at the lower level?
Yes.
And what actually do you see?
There's an object that doesn't fit with the line of the building that seems to be protruding, and that's what's on fire.
We're getting a look at the building right now, and I must say the smoke seems to be obscuring our view.
Am I still connected?
Winston, this would support probably what Libby and you both said, that perhaps the fuselage was in the building that would cause a second explosion such as that.
Well, that's what just happened then.
That certainly.
Yeah, people are running.
We're getting word that perhaps.
Okay, hold on. The people here everybody's panicking.
Keep in mind that the collapse. Now, actually, we've got another eyewitness for you. Joining me is Terry Cohen. You were actually working right near the Pentagon. Tell me what you saw.
Well, we were outside. We were in a little construction trailer, and we were sitting having a meeting, and we heard this boom. The building shook. The ceiling tiles fell out of the ceiling, and we ran out. We kind of dazed, grabbed our hard hats, ran out, and there was just smoke. You couldn't get to. We tried to get to where it was to see what it was. You couldn't get there because it was just thick. You couldn't see anything but just smoke. And we were just, it was 2 seconds after it happened, and we just sort of, people were screaming, "Run, what is it, what is it?" So we headed away from the building, not knowing where to go, and there was just confusion everywhere. Then 10 seconds later, people came up and were saying, in security, saying, "Just get away from the building, we don't know what it is, just get away from it." But as we walked away, as we started getting away, there were people on the road, which were very close to the exit, and they were saying, "Oh my God, did you see that? It was an airplane. It was an airplane." Just came, and they kept saying it was a big airplane. I kept thinking, I thought maybe it was just from National Airport. An airplane had hit us. 15 minutes later, there was a terrible explosion again, and we just went through the tunnel and away.
What were you being told by security personnel, or were you being told anything?
We weren't being told anything. It was chaotic. People were just running. There was a security guy just saying, screaming to me, "Run!" I said, "But where do you want me to go?" He said, "Just get away from the building," because you didn't know where to go. So we were fenced in. We were only about 100 feet away from it. We were fenced in, ran out the only gate that was, and just walked away from it. Well, actually ran away. It was very loud, very crazy, and very smoky.
And I would assume, like a lot of people in this area, you're basically stuck here at this point. All of the roads are shut down. It doesn't look like anybody's being allowed to leave the area.
The cell phones are down. You can't get away. You can't get to your cars. We've been walking ever since the beginning, and we've just walked in circles. I bet we've walked 2 miles. You can't use your cell phone, and you really can't go anywhere. So we're stuck here. We don't have any information.
Did you ever think that you would be in a situation like this? I mean, this is the Pentagon. This is a very secure building. It's a building, a symbol for this country. Did you ever imagine in a million years that something like this would happen?
You know, the funny thing, when I came here, I work in a lot of secured buildings, and that was the first question I asked. Where is the alert sign? There's always alert sign. And I walk this building all the time. I kept thinking, where's the alert sign? It went in the new wedge, the old wedge. I couldn't find it. So I asked somebody with a military uniform, and he said, "Oh, this building's so safe. We don't post that." So I felt very comfortable in here. Where in other buildings I do work, I do keep up with what
was at least a possibility that train was not going to leave the station. And probably 15 minutes later, we were off the train, out of the station.
Would strike the United States in the United States. And the only point I'd make today in the middle of a tragedy, I think we first have to take a deep breath and recognize how big this tragedy is for the American people. That I don't think we have to become paranoid. I don't think we have to go into a bunker mentality. But for 8 years, we have said publicly that bin Laden is a major threat to the United States. And yet for 8 years, while we have launched Tomahawk missiles and we've done other things, we haven't taken him as seriously as he has taken us. And all I'm suggesting is that if we don't have a decisive response to convince observers that you cannot kill innocent Americans in peacetime without retaliation of severe proportions, that other groups and other people will decide that the most open society in the world
quite so relaxed if the president was returning to the White House. And you heard John Cochran report from Florida a while ago that there is nobody's told him where the president is going to land on his way back. In fact, he does traditionally land at Andrews Air Force Base, and we have no idea precisely where he is going to land. And But there is no doubt at the moment that authorities are on alert from coast to coast still. All air traffic halted. All high-profile buildings in New York City, certainly in the District of Columbia, all of the national buildings have been evacuated. It's certainly been true in Chicago. The Sears Tower of Chicago was evacuated. So were the tallest skyscrapers in Boston, Cleveland, and Minneapolis, and the Space Needle as well in Seattle was closed. Military bases all across the country went on alert, on a variety of stages alert. In Washington, military personnel were put on what's called alert level Delta, which is the highest possible alert status, and military personnel throughout the country were put on Charlie threat level. For people who follow those things, we say them often without knowing what they mean, but they're both pretty high states of alert. There was extra security put in place at the Department of Energy's nuclear weapons and research complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. They put in extra security at the Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico, and among the other places at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland. This is to give you some sense of the magnitude. We're looking at a limited amount of picture of New York City and Washington, but let me go on with this list of what people did across the country today. In Louisiana, the state police urged all petrochemical and pipeline companies to be on alert. In this particular tension, a target which people who study terrorism believed which was vulnerable. In Los Angeles, all of the police in Los Angeles went on tactical alert and mobilized their anti-terrorist division. You recall before the World Trade Fair, the World Trade meeting that was held up in Seattle, one of the last times the system really worked and everybody efficiently was when they caught a guy coming across the border from British Columbia and Canada with a view to blowing up the Space Needle, I think it was at the time, in the Space Needle in
shower in essence at 11:40 in the morning. This is the Beltway Outer Loop. Before Telegraph Road, this traffic is very slow all the way to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. There are no accidents. We've been getting a lot of calls, people wondering whether the bridges, the Wilson Bridge and the American Legion Bridge, are open. They are indeed. Let's look at the 14th Street Bridge up 395. And a lot of folks notice all the pedestrians there on the side. Now, we were told that there was absolutely no traffic being allowed across the 14th Street Bridge inbound. Obviously, coming off the GW Parkway, some traffic. These folks are either going into town or out of town. The outbound 14th Street Bridge, the outbound Memorial, ceased operations at this point. And we'll keep you updated on that. As far as the rush hour, or what we have now is a rush hour, everyone's just going to have to take it very, very cautiously. Additional time, obviously, tensions are running extremely high, and we'll be here as often as we can to keep you updated. Back to you.
All right, Jerry, thank you. We appreciate it.
As we said, United Airlines has confirmed one of its flights has crashed near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That happened around 10 o'clock this morning. It was en route from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco. It is not known whether that crash is related to the others this morning, the two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center and one that crashed into the Pentagon. But a few minutes ago, a Pittsburgh television station spoke on the telephone with reporter Rick Earl, who just received some new information about this crash.
Yeah, David, I just spoke with a 911 operator at the emergency dispatching center in Greensburg, and he tells quite an amazing story this morning. He says at about 9:58 this morning, his center, his emergency dispatching center, which is based in Greensburg, received a cellular telephone call.
That's a potential problem for the officials that
Let's
are still
go to David Schuster in Washington. Thank you. Let's go to Logan Airport in Washington. This is a security news conference.
Logan Airport. We've closed the airport to all arriving and all departing flights. We've increased our security measures. We've shut down all the construction sites within Logan Airport, both airside and landside. And we've shut down all security checkpoints and removed all passengers who had been previously screened out into the non-secure part of that may have had families flying on those flights that we've had various reports on, to call these following numbers. American Airlines
north, but when the first tower, the one that actually was that you saw, was the second tower hit, but the first tower to collapse fell, then it was mass chaos, and there were thousands of people running up the streets. This billowing cloud of dust and debris came washing up over here, four blocks away, which only exacerbated the chaos of the moment. And then from then on, from the time that the first tower collapsed, there was just the street here, Church Street, was just full of people covered in dust, holding their handkerchiefs or papers over their mouths to try to breathe, moving northward away from this area. That stream trickled out, and then when the second building collapsed, once again there were more people, but this time when the second building collapsed, I witnessed firemen who were helping one another, struggling up the street, covered in debris. There was a police officer who was being carried by two other police officers, trying to get out of that area. So there was obviously a lot of collateral damage with the people around that area. I would say even not just at the base of it, but for them to have gotten to my point that quickly, they would have been injured probably 2.5 blocks away from where the towers fell.
Don, thanks very much. Don't go away, because you've helped us appreciate at ground level what, as I said before, seems almost surrealistic when you look at it on television. In terms of people getting out of the trade towers, do you have any sense at all, have you heard anything even anecdotally from the cops about how many people managed to get out of the building before they collapsed?
No, absolutely not. But you can imagine that the World Trade Centers, I'm not sure how many elevators exactly they have, but I have been in those buildings, and I think there are around 20 elevators in each. If they shut down immediately, you can imagine the people who would be streaming down the fire escapes and the stairwells. There's also, I don't know if it was the case now, but I do know that one of the towers had a major elevator that went all the way to the top that was malfunctioning and has been malfunctioning for at least a month. They've been having a lot of trouble with that. Not that that would have made any kind of difference, of course, once those elevators shut down. As soon as I imagine the fire alarms go on and that kind of thing, it's de rigueur that the elevators are not to be used in that situation. If the elevators go all the way to the top, and that's where the extent of the damage was at the very top of these, there's probably no way that anyone on the lower floors was able to use elevators. So they were all going down the stairwells, and one can only hope that there was quick enough reaction that they did get clear away, that they did not stop at the base.
Thank you, Don, very much. You know, somebody said, looking at the Pentagon this morning, that it reminded them of World War II. Clearly a person too young to remember World War II. But as you look at these scenes, you can feel absolutely clear that you're looking at the results of the United States at war with angry and vicious people who will do in the future, as they have in the past, whatever they can to get at the United States, this huge presence in the world, with any number of enemies in the world, with any number of people who feel the United States has messed up their lives or their countries or their movements or impeded them from something. And so, in fairness, without being too carried away with it, we're looking at pictures from a war zone this morning. Not a picture, something that looks like a war zone, looks like an old war zone, but it's a picture of a current war zone in this endless battle between the United States and its enemies. Usually small groups of enemies. We're talking in countries to some extent here, but we're talking about the most unconventional form of warfare that man engages in, which is terrorism. Designed to cause terror, designed to have an impact on the psychology of Americans, designed to show that the United States is vulnerable. What better expresses American vulnerability than to watch these?
A chance he will be making some kind of statement, but the president is safe. The Secret Service is simply not saying where he is. Also, the minority leader of the Senate, Trent Lott, and House Speaker Denny Hastert, we know have been taken to safe locations as well. Let's get an update on the situation in Manhattan. Molly Falconer is at St. Vincent's Hospital. Clearly there have been perhaps thousands of casualties today when those two towers came down. Molly, what can you tell us?
John, this is a hospital under siege. This block is under siege. Police have got the entire area blocked off with what looks like police barriers. So far, we have about 152 people who have come into this hospital. People are out in...
Lost communication.
A lot of panic, a lot of emotions. What was it like?
Some people, I got the chills. I was very nervous, and there was a lot of confusion. The teachers were telling us that it was very scary because they had watched it on TV, but we didn't get to watch it until a couple hours later.
Okay, all right. All of you, thank you. Stay safe. Will Thomas here at Woodrow Wilson High School in Northwest Washington. Now back to you.
Okay.
We do want to go now to Jim McNally, who is with Metro, to give us an update. Jim, can you hear us?
Sure can, Lark. Thanks. As you travel out of downtown, obviously, as you guys have been talking about, there's a lot of traffic in the downtown area and gridlocked in a lot of cases. Part of the problem has been the closure along the Mall. Constitution Avenue had been shut down as people tried to come into the city, so that was shut down. You can get out of town now by way of 395 and the 14th Street Bridge. The main and the express lanes are open to outbound traffic. You can see in this camera shot people on foot. There are people that are walking out of the city across the 14th Street Bridge. We suspect these are people that are trying to get to the metro system, or folks that may frankly be a little frustrated with trying to get out by car. The metro system, as far as that's concerned, is operating. However, trains are not stopping at these stations on the blue-yellow line, Pentagon, and at National Airport. And on the red line, trains are not stopping at Union Station. And again, you cannot get into the city by way of 395. That's closed at the Beltway. Route 50 in Virginia is shut down at Washington Boulevard. And Route 1 in Crystal City is shut down northbound at Glebe Road, so you can't get into town. Back to you guys.
Now you have Metro traffic. Would you want to make that?
On the runway, getting ready to take off, we're told to return to the airport and to have all of their passengers exit the terminals and get out of the airport. Lots of people walked. They had no other way to get out of here. There was a mass exodus. Obviously, with the Pentagon hit so very close from here, authorities suspected that this was going to be another target. They brought in some giant fire trucks with foam in them. They brought in other emergency equipment to prepare for any possibility. Security has literally shut down this airport. No one can get in, no one can get out at this point other than the people who are being evacuated. But at this point, as you can see, there's a few cars literally down by the, now we're seeing some people running. We're seeing we're seeing a security official telling people to put throwing hands down. We're not sure exactly, we're hearing something now. We're hearing what sounds to be an aircraft approaching the area. But I think it's a metro train that we see passing by, but it sounded like aircraft in the air. We know that no aircraft is supposed to be inside of this area. Now there is a jet, there's a military jet. I know you can see it now. There's a military jet flying above us here at Reagan National Airport right now. Obviously, we're hoping at this point that this is a U.S. military aircraft flying right above Reagan National Airport. He is climbing in altitude. We don't know where this aircraft came from, but this aircraft obviously on a mission somewhere, leaving this Reagan National Airport area very, very fast. Now circling back, it seems, toward us. We've had a very tense situation here, as I said, at Reagan National Airport. The entire airport not only shut down, but evacuated. We know that airports all across this country have been shut down, but this airport here at Reagan National, so close to the Pentagon, has been evacuated.
Debris from one of the planes on the street, a huge gear at one point, looked like a piece of an engine at another point. So that debris is still littering that area up there. They had roped it off with police tape, and they had FBI agents out there, and that was just before the first tower came tumbling down and everyone went running away. So there's evidence out here. There's a lot of work left to be done, and as you can imagine, the streets are a bit chaotic at this point. But I just want to show you one drastic difference looking north as opposed to looking south. Blue skies, clear streets, not a lot going on over there, but then come back around this way, Dan, and you'll see just smoke billowing from the scene. Still obviously a major disaster waiting to be cleaned up. Back to you, John.
All right, Rick Leventhal in Lower Manhattan, thank you very much. A dark day in America, September 11th, 2001. 2 planes strike the World Trade Center, obliterate it. It has collapsed. Another plane hits the Pentagon. It is still on fire, and we may not be done yet. Britt Hume, our Washington managing editor, is in D.C. Britt?
John, just some notes from our State Department reporter, Terry.
To a loved one or somebody they're trying to reach by cell phone or by telephone, and they're not able to reach them. We should tell people there's a lot of traffic outside of the downtown area. There's a lot of gridlock, and people are having trouble communicating by telephone, and they're having trouble reaching their homes right now, too, aren't they?
Yes, they are. One of the first things we noticed, particularly this morning, now the situation has eased now, is that cell phone lines became jammed immediately. People were walking around trying to get in touch with their loved ones, trying to find out if their children were okay. They weren't able to get to buildings. Again, many parents had children in daycare centers in and around some of the federal buildings. They couldn't get to their children. They couldn't use a cell phone to call. Families had awfully tough times uniting with loved ones. And again, parking lots were jammed. Restaurants were closing down. And while the federal government officially shut down, businesses just on their own this morning, as the situation worsened, just took it upon themselves to say, hey, you've got to get out of here, you've got to get downtown. And believe me, as people are walking downtown and we would hear in the distance military aircraft, heads would simply point to the sky, everyone looking and wondering, what was it? Is it going to be another plane crash? And at the same time, as you might imagine, in all the federal buildings downtown, the rumors were flying. Rumors that there had been some sort of incident at the State Department. There was not. Rumors that there was another renegade plane that was headed for Washington. At the time, it was not. So all of these things are circulating, all the talk going on, and people basically not knowing.
James, I want to interrupt you here. James, excuse me, I want to interrupt you here. We just got word that United Airlines is confirming that a second one of its planes has crashed. We don't know where. There was no word on where this plane crashed or from what airport it took off and where it was bound, but United Airlines says a second of its airliners has crashed somewhere. We'll have more information on that as the information becomes available. We're told that the plane was out of Chicago. What was it bound for? Do we know yet, Jimmy? We don't know where the plane was bound, but a second plane has crashed. United Airlines confirms. We'll tell you more about that.
Jim, I've actually... Good morning, Dell. Well, we have been here at the corner of Independence Avenue at the Ellipse for many hours now, and for most of the time, the traffic has looked like this, basically at a standstill in both directions. Right now, you do see a little bit of traffic moving in the westbound direction, but traffic's been very, very heavy for hours. I want to take you on a little tour of our location. The Ellipse has been closed for about the past hour and a half. When Secret Service showed up, we saw a number of officers showed up. They donned flak jackets and they told everyone who was standing on the Ellipse to get off of it. Past us, you can see the White House, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it from our cameras, but there has been a vastly noted increase in security on the White House grounds, both on the South Lawn and on the roof of the White House. Now, when this all first happened, hundreds of people began gathering on the Ellipse, both tourists and people who had been evacuated from their buildings. They were coming up to us, asking us if we knew what was going on, and at times, dozens of people were actually gathered around our monitors. As you can imagine, a lot of tourists here on the mall, a number of people we spoke to who are from New York City who wanted to know what was going on with their loved ones there. Now, as far as traffic is concerned, we do have some information to tell you about if you are trying to get out of town. Right now, the 14th Street Bridge is closed, and afternoon traffic patterns
are now metal and glass. We don't know how many people were in the building at the time. It was shortly before 9 a.m. and we heard from one eyewitness that there are people going to their offices and in the building at that time. People on the ground just shocked. Some were caught with flaming debris and were burning, and others came to their rescue.
The mayor of New York, Rudolph Giuliani, says he fears a horrendous loss of life, a horrendous loss. A fire marshal, Mike Smith, up in New York, says everyone was screaming, crying, running cops. People, firefighters, everyone. Mike Smith, the fire marshal, said it's like a war zone. There are many injured.
We saw people jumping from the buildings trying to save their lives, a futile attempt from that high up. About an hour after the explosions at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, the west side of the Pentagon, the world's largest office building, was struck by a plane. Conflicting reports that it may have been a corporate jet. Others saying that they saw markings that this was an American Airlines plane, maybe as large as a 737, 747, whatever. A plane did go into that building, created the flames that we are looking here at live. A cavernous hole in one side of the Pentagon as well. Mayor Tony Williams and senior police officials have been meeting. Out of that meeting, all district government offices are closed and public safety personnel are on heightened state of alert. The mayor was meeting with the key police department officials and other city officials at the Reeve Center in Northwest Washington. The entire Reeve Center is a restricted area with only authorized personnel being allowed into offices of the D.C. Emergency Management Agency.
Pictures taken earlier, but still very much on fire. The damage there perhaps not as severe as it is at the World Trade Center, but clearly America is under attack. I want to bring into the conversation a man who long planned for and never experienced this kind of event. Howard Safer, the former police commissioner and also fire commissioner, if I'm correct, of the city of New York. You got to be wondering about the guys who you once commanded both on the fire and police departments, who were no doubt trying to help people get out of those buildings when they came down around them.
Well, it's incomprehensible. We planned for all kinds of terrorist attacks, biological warfare, chemical warfare, but nobody envisioned two commercial airliners slamming into the World Trade Center. And I can tell you that although New York has the greatest emergency services in the world, they are being strained by the triage, by the number of injured, and by the requirements of this disaster.
I'm just guessing that most of those, clearly there would have been glass falling. We even had reports of people jumping out of the upper floors simply because they couldn't tolerate the smoke anymore. But a lot of your people would have been gathered.
Act of terrorism. Two hijacked planes crashing into the World Trade Center, collapsing what was once one of the tallest buildings in the world, leaving a scene some described as a nuclear winter. Good evening, everyone. It was one of the darkest days in America through the day and into the night, and it is not over. New York and the nation will never be the same. What was once a symbol of America's might is tonight a scene of utter devastation. Piles of rubble, acres of gray ash, a death toll that some estimate could reach into the thousands. Hundreds of rescue workers, very little hope in the rubble of the World Trade Center. And this is the scene tonight at the Pentagon, hit by another hijacked plane shortly after the attack on the World Trade Center. The Pentagon says it does not yet know how many people were killed or injured. President Bush, facing the first and largest crisis of his presidency, one of the largest crises of any modern president, first got word of this attack while he was in Florida today. He then flew to a secure underground bunker near Omaha, the Strategic Air Command headquarters, before returning tonight to the White House and an address to the nation at 8:30. In a brief...
Tom, the president is now preparing his speech to the nation. Aides tell us it will be a message of resolve and reassurance that our nation has...
Nuestro equipaje de mano pasa por un detector de metales, todas las maletas pasan por algún tipo de seguridad. En algunos aeropuertos, incluso después de que pasa la primera parte de seguridad, hay una segunda. ¿Qué pueden hacer para tratar de evitar ese tipo de... especialmente cuando entra una persona con un cuchillo? O sea, un cuchillo...
Se esconde una pistola. Como hemos discutido anteriormente, existe el modelo israelí.
I'm suspect, of course, on everybody's tip of everybody's lips is Osama bin Laden, housed in Afghanistan. We saw earlier live pictures of explosive, and that is a source of information. More importantly, though, it is an outlet for anybody to report information about these attacks. Anything that you may have seen or not seen, the address there is on your screen. Seen being anything that out of the ordinary struck you as the events unfolded, or not seen, where you thought that something should have been taking place and wasn't, and that raised your suspicions as well. There's the website on your screen, IFCC, either .fbi.gov or IFCC.fbi.gov. Try both of those. We also have a 1-800 number, which is a source for people to leave contact information if you are a victim or a family of somebody who has a victim in their family as well. Call this number. You can leave contact information. You can also get information from them about your loved ones. The number there is on your screen, 800-331-0075.
The U.S. military aircraft carriers, they left the U.S. Naval Base in Norfolk, Virginia, and they will provide additional air defense for Washington and for New York. And as you know, there are warships that are now headed toward the harbor in New York as additional backup as well.
You know, when it comes to trying to track down who is responsible for this, obviously very early in the stages of tracking down those who created such a havoc across the eastern seaboard here. But a few things that perhaps even those who pulled this off didn't realize is the modern day technology. Folks have cell phones on airplanes, and as tragic as it may seem, there were at least 2 cell phone calls that we know of on 2 separate flights today that were in San Francisco that crashed about 80 miles northwest of the presidential retreat, Camp David. An individual on that plane dialed 911, claimed that he was locked in the bathroom and that they had been hijacked. Those were his words: "We are being hijacked, we are being hijacked."
Lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. We'll be in touch again.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Back to the New York Bureau and Tim Cavanaugh, who...
And then I was on a conversation with his brother, and he told me that...
Into the stairwell, and certainly the elevators were not working. He got out, and shortly after that, that building came down. It was that kind of a day, and there are going to be so many more of those stories, an untold number at this hour, hundreds, perhaps thousands. Dateline's Jane Pauley takes us through some of the horror of this day and what happened at the World Trade Center.
The mighty World Trade Center tumbling down.
Oh my God!
Everyday New Yorkers had to run for their lives. How fragile the city seemed today. We deployed a team of Dateline staffers to bring us images of a city under siege on handheld digital cameras.
What I saw today on the streets of Manhattan really were the extremes of New York. It's the best and the worst of people.
I got 20 blocks away when the smell and the taste really hit me. Way in the distance, the huge cloud on the horizon, but I could taste and smell something that was like the worst electrical fire ever imaginable.
They brought us a startling glimpse of what it was like to be at ground zero of a major terrorist attack.
What's it like down there?
Saved 6 people. I tried my best to try to save everybody.
First, get away, then get home. Businesses were closed and buildings evacuated. Thousands upon thousands were left to negotiate a maze of closed streets and suspended services.
There's a real sense of panic on the streets among the tens of thousands of pedestrians, and it was easy to see why. Look to the horizon on the south, and you see an enormous gray-black cloud from the explosion.
As they moved towards safety uptown, people tried to keep up with the flurry of events any way they could. Even the wounded walked. This woman was on the 19th floor of the World Trade Center when the first explosion hit. Hurt, but lucky to get out before the building collapsed. We found her 30 blocks north, heading to Bellevue Medical Center.
A huge cloud of gray, huge cloud of gray came and everyone started running and stampeding and everyone was falling on the ground. And I don't know what knocked me over. I don't know if it was the person or just the force of the wind. But I fell down, I just covered my head. I prayed that a building wouldn't fall on me, and I really thought I was going to die.
Doctors and medical students lined up like extras on the set of a disaster movie. Almost immediately after the attack, Along with all three major airports, the city's subways, bridges, tunnels, and major highways were all closed. The FDR Drive, normally a winding snarl of congested traffic, empty. Thousands of commuters from New York's outer boroughs were left stranded in Manhattan. By mid-afternoon, a police officer on the scene estimated that more than 20,000 people had crossed the 59th Street Bridge on foot.
Local service, always listen to the radio.
Meanwhile, Grand Central Station was jammed, but the trains were running until noon.
I remember standing in Grand Central and watching a man and a woman feel relief. I felt their relief to see each other again. After people had been managing to get out for about 15 minutes, all of a sudden they announced that they were evacuating the building, and people were ordered to get out immediately, and workers in their orange vests were running for the exits, and we didn't know what was going on. We just ran with them.
Confused passengers poured out of the building after a bomb threat.
It hit me that this building really could blow up, and I was scared. I was afraid that the building literally could blow up underneath my feet.
All around the city, it was a mass migration of hundreds of thousands of people, but uncannily quiet. Perhaps it was the unspeakable horrors many had seen.
It was orderly, but it was chaotic.
Hijacked jets in the air, and one of them, American Airlines Flight 77, took aim on the Pentagon. It crashed in a fireball at 9:38. Meanwhile, the fourth plane, the flight from Newark to San Francisco, was heading west, and it traveled all the way into northeastern Ohio. The controllers monitoring radar watched as the jet then did a U-turn and headed back towards the East Coast. At 10:20, 2.5 hours after the four-pronged attack was launched, the plane crashed in a rural Pennsylvania field.
I happened to hear a plane come through. It sounded like it was running normally. When it come down over top of me.
And still have plenty of time left over to get outside and enjoy it. Weather.com on America Online. Keyword weather.